Yo, what's up? So The Burning was released in 1981. It was directed by Tony Maylam, and it follows the story of a former camp caretaker who was badly burnt from a prank gone wrong. After spending 5 years in recovery in the hospital, he is released, vowing to take revenge by slaughtering teenagers at an upstate New York summer camp. Oh Lord, so many similarities. So, as usual, let's get into the positives of The Burning. The slasher factor was definitely there. This was a definite slasher flick that was in the early 80s, around the time when all these other 80s slashers, Friday the 13th, Hell Night, Motel Hell, and all of them was just donning the big screen. So naturally, this would come out. Though I do have a little bit of a problem. There is so much similarities in this film with another slasher film, which I will get into later. I know you're probably guessing on what I'm going to say next about that. But this film had its moments. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very well structured, especially for a slasher flick. The gore was pretty decent. You know, it didn't hold nothing back, though it wasn't as strong as Candyman, though there's an 11-year gap in between this and that film. It was very well done. It had a little bit of a cheesy slash campiness about it. But it was good, don't get me wrong. One scene that stands out for me, and I think it stands out to a lot of people, is the Raft Massacre scene. That scene right there really stood out to me. Like I said, I think it stands out to a lot of people. That scene is what I think puts this movie on the map and was about the only bloodiest scene in this film. And let's talk about Cropsey, the main baddie. He was pretty decent. I liked him. I liked the way he carried himself. There's a lot of mystery to him, the way the filmmakers did this character. You know, after it showed that 5-year gap and him being released from the hospital and then him doing his thing, they kept it under wraps. You don't see his face until the end, and dare I say, is definitely worth it by then. But it kept it a complete mystery, and that's what I like.
Let's move it, huh? I mean, I gotta earn a living.
When they add the mystery to horror films, such as slashers, that's what makes it even much better. You get a lot of POV shots, and as I was getting ready to say, there's a bunch of similarities to Friday the 13th. This film, of course, came out after that, and I think this film is actually coming off the credibility and success of that film. And even though it was a lot of similarities, and I'll get into that in the negatives later, the way they did some of the shots, of the POV shots, was actually pretty interesting. The only difference between Friday the 13th and this film, when it would show the POV shots, it would have that creepy score in the back. That's one thing the Friday the 13th movies never really did, because when they would do the POV shots in those, you'd hear nothing. But in this, it actually added a certain texture to it. And I found it to be pretty good. It should also be noted that the original actor that is shown at the beginning of this film that plays Cropsey, when the teenagers are playing that prank on him and he gets horribly burnt, he's not the one that does the killing in this. It's actually noted Hollywood horror special effects makeup artist Tom Savini, who did the makeup for Cropsey and a bunch of other horror films like Friday the 13th. He was the man responsible of how Jason looked in the original film. And he also did a couple of the Creepshow films, the first two mainly. He's a pretty good artist. He actually has his own studio where he teaches students. He's a teacher and he teaches others to, do what he does. I think he's very talented. But he showed the right stamina for this part. Lou David, who actually plays the character at the beginning, does actually return for the end, and which is what I got to talk about. The special effects make up for Cropsey. The way they made his face look, it was definitely worth it. As I said, they keep this character a mystery when he's doing his thing, and I like his weapon of choice, which is garden shears. That was a nice touch. I think the garden shears added a definite terrified factor, and I think it added to the gore too. It's like his own little style. Like the butcher knife was Michael's style, the finger knives was Freddy Krueger's way of killing, and anything with Jason. But the garden shears was a definite change. I think they made the right choice with that. But Tom Savini, he did a really good job. Not only with the makeup effects, with Cropsey himself and the death scenes, but when he was actually acting out the parts. And they were very careful about that. I noticed that every time he would show up, and again, it goes back to that mystery. You would always see a shadowy figure with a long trench coat, almost like a ghostly figure. They were very careful about it, and they did a really good job. I really have to praise them for that. On to my mixed. The tone and pace, it was okay. I know I said this about Candyman, but I can't help the way I feel. By the second act of this film, it felt like it was dragging on. And there was a few deaths here and there. There was like one death in the first act, but then it took maybe like roughly 30 minutes until it went to another death. And I just felt like there was too much there, too much dialogue. I felt like there should have been a death a little sooner after the first death. I can get past it. It didn't really bug me to the point to where I'm turning the film off. Of course, the first time I watched this film, this actually makes the third time. First time I watched this film, I didn't really care for it. Second time when I bought the Blu-ray, I cared for it a little more. And the third time, I felt about the same I did the second time. So that really helped. If I was to review this movie years ago when I first watched it, I probably would have been a little harsher on it. But thankfully, it just took me a couple more watches for me to get used to it, for me to actually appreciate it for what it was. But like I said about the tone and pacing, I can let it go. It just wasn't no Friday the 13th. Speaking of, let's jump on to the negatives. As much as I like the Friday the 13th movies and this film, I do like this film to a certain extent, but I felt like that they were basing it too much on the Friday the 13th. The plot was very similar. The only difference is the way they handled the villains. So basically, Jason drowned, Cropsey burnt. Enough said. If you were to take these two characters and compare them, that would be the only difference, is how they died. They both come back for revenge. There's just too much similarities there. And as much as I like the score during the POV shots, I didn't feel like it worked for certain scenes. This movie came out, I think, the same year Friday the 13th Part 2 came out. And there was a scene similar in that film that they showed in this film, where they were gathered around the campfire telling the story about its main villain. And there was so much similarities to that scene. But in this film, the way they played it off, it didn't really work for me. They played that prank on everybody, just like they did in Friday the 13th Part 2. But the score was just way off, especially after you found out it was a prank. But the way they did it in Friday the 13th Part 2, you didn't hear a score, and I thought that was good enough. I really didn't think you needed a score for that same exact scene in this film. I just didn't feel like it worked for this. And the characters, I didn't really get much out of them. The only character I did kind of like was Jason Alexander, which, if you know him from, I think he was in Seinfeld, and he's one of those comedic actors. I've seen him pop up every now and then. He was pretty funny in this film. I liked him. That's about the only character I liked. And he wasn't really one of the main characters in this film. Even the lead characters, Brian Matthews and Leah Ayres, they didn't really stand out to me. And that might change as I watch it more, because I probably will be watching this movie more. That might change, but for now, I just didn't really get that much out of the characters. So all in all, this was pretty decent. If you're a slasher fan and don't care about too much similarities and cheesy moments, then enjoy it for its acquired taste. So, The Burning, what was your thoughts on it? Did you find it horrifying? Did you find it entertaining? Or do you prefer Friday the 13th over this? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. Like, subscribe, and comment if you hadn't already. Stay tuned for more videos and reviews coming soon. Peace, the Rip.